The salty tang of the Atlantic drifted through the open sash window of Eleanor Vance's third-floor brownstone apartment in Boston's historic Beacon Hill. Below, Charles Street was already thrumming with the determined energy of a Tuesday morning. The city, with its blend of old-world charm and modern ambition, invigorated her. "Mama, where's Barnaby?" Sophie's 6-year-old voice, laced with a familiar morning urgency, echoed from her sun-dappled bedroom. Eleanor smiled, turning from her Earl Grey tea. "Check the blue toy chest, sweet pea. He was napping there after his grand adventure yesterday." Sophie was Eleanor's universe. For years had passed since her amicable, if painful, divorce from David. This elegant, surprisingly spacious apartment, which Eleanor, a senior architect at the renowned firm Sterling and Moss Designs, had meticulously renovated, was their sanctuary. Walls painted in muted jewel tones were adorned with Sophie's vibrant artwork and Eleanor's own architectural sketches. Soft, Oriental rugs covered polished wood floors, and framed photographs chronicled their life together. "Got him." Sophie scampered in, a well-loved stuffed bear clutched in her hand, her bright blue eyes sparkling. "Excellent. Breakfast awaits. Big day today, remember." Eleanor's current project, a landmark luxury hotel for the Hawthorne Group, was entering a critical design phase. Today involved a high-stakes presentation to the board. Juggling her demanding career with single motherhood was a perpetual tightrope walk. Late nights poring over blueprints were often followed by early mornings orchestrating Sophie's school routine, yet Eleanor always met her daughter with a radiant smile, her fatigue carefully concealed. "Mama, after school, can we go to the aquarium? I want to see the giant octopus again," Sophie chirped, spooning cereal. Eleanor gently brushed a stray curl from Sophie's forehead. "A splendid idea. You adore those magnificent creatures, don't you?" Sophie Vance, a bright first grader at a well-regarded public school in Back Bay, possessed an insatiable curiosity, especially for marine biology and tales of intrepid explorers. David, her father, visited reliably once a month, and Sophie cherished their time together. Eleanor and David had worked hard to maintain a cordial co-parenting relationship, always prioritizing Sophie's well-being. "Mama, when are Nana and Pops coming to visit from their farm?" Eleanor's smile wavered almost imperceptibly. "Well, darling, Nana and Pops live quite a way off, in upstate New York. It's a long drive. Perhaps we'll see them around Thanksgiving." In truth, her parents, Margaret and Arthur Davies, resided in a quaint but isolated farmhouse near Albany, a mere 4-hour drive. Eleanor's relationship with them was a tapestry woven with threads of obligation and quiet resentment. Margaret, a homemaker who had always deferred to her husband, presented a veneer of gentle piety that masked a chilling detachment. Arthur, a retired history professor with unyielding, patriarchal views, had never approved of Eleanor's independent streak or her decision to build a life and career in Boston. "Sophie, grab your backpack. Time to conquer the day." Watching Sophie skip towards the door, Eleanor let out a quiet sigh. Sophie, blissfully unaware of the undercurrents, still yearned for a storybook connection with her grandparents. Their encounters were infrequent, usually strained holiday affairs that left Eleanor emotionally drained. Eleanor had a younger sister, Clara, unmarried and living near their parents, working part-time at the local library. Clara, the perpetually favored child, harbored a poorly disguised envy of Eleanor's metropolitan success. Even her infrequent phone calls were laced with a saccharine condescension. "Mother and father talk about you constantly. You really should come home more often," she'd coo, her tone devoid of genuine warmth. Eleanor minimized visits to her childhood home. Since her youth, she'd been cast as the daughter who perpetually fell short, especially in her father's critical eyes. Attending university in Boston had been an act of self-preservation. Her marriage was dismissed as reaching, her divorce met with a cold, "we always knew." Their interest in Sophie was cursory at best. Birthday gifts were often forgotten. Mama, I'm all set. Sophie's cheerful call pulled Eleanor from her reverie. Eleanor's smile returned, genuine and bright. Let's go, my little explorer. Sophie often voiced her desire for closer ties with her grandparents. I wish Nana would teach me to bake her famous apple pie, or Pop supposedly knows all the best fishing spots by the creek. Eleanor would navigate these innocent remarks with forced cheerfulness, her own complex emotions carefully hidden. Having navigated her own childhood deprivations, Eleanor was fiercely determined to shower Sophie with the unconditional love she herself had craved. Squeezing Sophie's hand, she made a silent vow, I will never let them diminish you. Friday afternoon found Eleanor in the sleek, glass-walled conference room at Sterling and Moss Designs, blueprints for the Hawthorne Hotel spread across the mahogany table. Despite the efficient air conditioning, a bead of perspiration traced her temple. The final presentation was tomorrow, a Saturday. Have these structural calculations been triple-checked, Eleanor? Mr. Henderson, the firm's senior partner, queried, his finger hovering over a complex section. Eleanor quickly located the relevant addendum. Yes, sir. I cross-referenced with the engineering team yesterday. All sound. The Hawthorne account was pivotal, a potential career-defining project. Agreeing to a Saturday presentation was a necessary sacrifice. Her phone vibrated. A glance at the caller ID, Sophie's after-school program, made her frown. Excuse me, gentlemen, I need to take this. Stepping out, she answered, only to hear the distressed voice of Maria, their trusted weekend babysitter. Eleanor, I am so terribly sorry. I've come down with a dreadful flu, fever and all. There's no way I can look after Sophie tomorrow. Eleanor's stomach clenched. Oh, Maria, are you all right? Is there anything I can do? Her mind, however, was already racing. Finding a reliable sitter on a Saturday with less than 24 hours' notice would be a Herculean task. Don't you worry about me, dear. Just a nasty bug. It's you I feel awful for. I'm so sorry to leave you in the lurch. After hanging up, Eleanor pressed her fingers to her temples. Frantic calls to friends yielded only apologetic refusals. Weekend plans were sacrosanct. David was attending a medical conference in San Francisco, unreachable until Sunday. Her phone rang again. An unfamiliar upstate New York number. Eleanor? It's Clara. Eleanor was momentarily stunned. Calls from Clara were rare, usually harbingers of parental displeasure. Clara? What is it? Is everyone okay? Well, it seems my timing is impeccable. Clara's voice was unnervingly bright. Mother and father are planning a day trip to Crane Beach tomorrow. They thought it would be lovely to take Sophie along. Crane Beach? Really? Eleanor couldn't mask her astonishment. It was an unprecedented display of interest in Sophie. But I have this crucial presentation tomorrow. I can't possibly go. Oh, that's perfectly fine. I'm going too, of course. We'll all look after her. Clara's voice possessed an unusual, almost eager warmth. Besides, mother and father were just saying how they wished they could get to know Sophie better. What better opportunity? A maelstrom of emotions churned within Eleanor. Suspicion warred with a desperate hope that perhaps, just perhaps, this could be a positive experience for Sophie. And undeniably, it would solve her immediate childcare crisis. I do have an incredibly important meeting, Eleanor said, choosing her words with care. If you're all certain you can manage, it would be an immense help. Consider it done. I'll drive down and pick her up at 9 tomorrow morning. Returning to her desk, Eleanor was pensive. This was the first time her parents and Clara had ever proactively sought to spend time with Sophie. Maybe it was a turning point, a chance for Sophie to forge the bond she so clearly desired. That evening, Eleanor shared the news. Sophie, guess what? Tomorrow, you're going to Crane Beach with Nana, Pops, and Aunt Clara. Sophie's eyes widened, then lit up like fireworks. The real beach? With waves and sand? Hooray! Witnessing Sophie's unbridled joy, Eleanor suppressed her own lingering unease. That's right, sweetie. Mama has to work, so I can't come. But I'll be home before dinner. I'm going to build the biggest sandcastle ever. Sophie bounced. And find sparkly seashells for you. Eleanor hugged her daughter tightly. Have a wonderful time. But you must listen to Nana and Pops, okay? After tucking Sophie into bed, Eleanor meticulously prepared for the beach trip. She packed a large tote with towels, a change of clothes, Sophie's swimsuit, sandals, high SPF sunscreen, a wide-brimmed hat, a reusable water bottle, and an assortment of Sophie's favorite non-perishable snacks. She also typed out a detailed note, emphatically highlighting Sophie's severe allergy to shellfish. Even trace amounts could trigger a reaction. The next morning, Eleanor rose early, helping Sophie get ready. Remember, this sunscreen every 2 hours, no exceptions. And if you get hungry before lunchtime, here are your special sandwiches. The doorbell chimed. Eleanor opened it to find Margaret, Arthur, and Clara on her doorstep. Good morning, Eleanor. Margaret offered a thin smile, her expression a fraction softer than usual. Good morning. Thank you for doing this. Please take good care of her, Eleanor said, a knot of anxiety tightening in her stomach. This bag has everything she'll need. Sunscreen every 2 hours is critical, and please, absolutely nothing from any seafood shacks or that she doesn't bring from home. The allergy list is in the side pocket. Margaret waved a dismissive hand. Eleanor, dear, we've raised children. There's no need to fuss so. Arthur, already impatient, honked the car horn from the street. Let's get a move on. Don't want to hit traffic on the 93. Clara took Sophie's hand. We're going to have such a grand day, Sophiekins. Sophie waved exuberantly. Bye, Mama. I'll bring you the prettiest shell. Eleanor knelt for one last hug. Have so much fun, my love. Call me if anything at all, happens. I'll be home before it gets dark, I promise. Watching the car pull away, a wave of apprehension washed over her. You're being paranoid, she told herself, shaking it off as she turned her focus to the Hawthorne presentation. The meeting with the Hawthorne group concluded by 4 p.m., 2 hours earlier than anticipated. It had been a resounding success. The contract was practically secured. Mr. Henderson clapped her on the shoulder, a rare smile on his face. Stellar work, Vance. Truly stellar. By 6 p.m., Eleanor, weary but elated, was unlocking her apartment door, eager to hear about Sophie's beach adventure. She was relieved to see her father's sedan still parked across the street. As she stepped inside, the sound of canned laughter from the television drifted from the living room. She could hear her parents' low murmurs, Clara's occasional titter, but not Sophie's distinctive, bright voice. I'm home, Eleanor called, walking into the living room. Margaret, Arthur, and Clara were sprawled on the sofa, engrossed in a sitcom. No, Sophie. Eleanor's heart began to hammer against her ribs. Where's Sophie? Oh, Eleanor, you're back early, Margaret said, her tone infuriatingly casual. Where is Sophie? Is she in her room? The bathroom. Eleanor's gaze darted around the apartment. Margaret blinked, a theatrical pause, then her eyes widened in feigned realization. Oh! My goodness, I completely forgot. How dreadful. Margaret clapped a hand over her mouth, a giggle escaping. Clara burst into outright laughter. I can't believe you actually forgot her, Mother. The blood drained from Eleanor's face. What? What do you mean you forgot? Her father, without looking up from the financial section of the Boston Globe, muttered, she was such a quiet little thing. Barely noticed her. What are you saying? Eleanor's voice trembled, dangerously low. Where did you leave my daughter? At the beach, of course, Margaret shrugged, as if discussing a misplaced umbrella. We were all a bit tired, you see. Packed up, got in the car, and, well, one thing led to another. Something inside Eleanor snapped. How can you laugh? You left a 6-year-old child, my child, alone on a public beach. Clara, arms crossed, smirked. Oh, don't be so dramatic, Eleanor. Sophie's a clever girl. I'm sure she's perfectly fine. Eleanor snatched her car keys, her hands shaking violently. Her entire being vibrated with a terrifying amalgam of rage and primal fear. Are you all insane? What if something's happened to her? No one responded. Arthur rustled his newspaper. Margaret examined her manicure. Clara idly scrolled through her phone. Eleanor stared at them, her voice barely a whisper. You did this on purpose. Margaret just smiled, a chillingly serene expression. Eleanor bolted from the apartment, fumbling with the car ignition, her mind a blinding white panic, Sophie's face the only image. Crane Beach was a good hour's drive without traffic. She ignored speed limits, the car eating up the miles as the sky bled into hues of orange and purple. It was nearly 7:30 p.m., dusk rapidly surrendering to darkness, when Eleanor skidded into the nearly deserted Crane Beach parking lot. A biting wind whipped off the ocean, the roar of the surf sounding ominous and vast. Sophie, Eleanor screamed, her voice swallowed by the wind as she sprinted onto the sand. No reply. Only the relentless crash of waves and the mournful cry of a distant gull. For what felt like an eternity, nearly 40 minutes, Eleanor scoured the sprawling beach, her calls growing hoarser, more desperate. The sun had vanished. The encroaching darkness was terrifying. Then, huddled amongst the shadowed rocks by the old jetty, she saw a small, trembling figure. Sophie, knees drawn to her chest, shivering uncontrollably, her face streaked with tears and sand. Her skin was visibly sunburned, her lips cracked and dry. Sophie, oh, my baby mama's here. Eleanor collapsed beside her, gathering her daughter into a fierce embrace. Mama, I was so scared. They all went away. I called and called, but nobody came. Sophie choked out between sobs, her small body racked with tremors. How long, sweet pea? How long have you been here alone? Eleanor chafed Sophie's ice-cold hands. Nana and Pops and Aunt Clara. We were making a sandcastle. Then they said they were going to get ice cream. They told me to wait right here. They never came back. Sophie had been abandoned for over 4 hours. Sunburned, dehydrated, famished, and utterly terrified. Eleanor carried her to the car, wrapped her in an emergency blanket from the trunk, and gave her sips of water. Sophie's small frame was cold to the touch. The sheer terror a 6-year-old must have endured, alone as darkness fell on a vast, empty beach, made Eleanor's heart feel as if it would implode. Cradling Sophie, a glacial rage, cold and absolute, solidified within her. A new, unbreakable resolve. It's okay now, Sophie. Mama's got you. And I swear to you, those people will never come near you again. Sophie slowly quieted in her mother's arms, but the fear in her eyes was a deep, haunting shadow. Mama, why didn't Nana come back? Was I bad? The words pierced Eleanor's soul. No, my darling. You were not bad. Not ever. They were bad. Terribly, unforgivably bad. Eleanor kissed Sophie's forehead, vowing silently to shield her from such cruelty forever. Eleanor drove straight to the nearest emergency clinic in Ipswich. The diagnosis: moderate dehydration, significant sunburn, and acute psychological distress. The attending physician, a kind woman with tired eyes, spoke to Eleanor in hushed tones. I understand young Sophie was found abandoned on the beach. Could you provide some context, Ms. Vance? After Eleanor recounted the events, the doctor's expression hardened. This is unequivocally child abandonment, Ms. Vance. We are mandated reporters. We may need to involve the authorities. While Sophie was being rehydrated and her sunburns treated, Eleanor made 3 calls. Her voice was devoid of all emotion, like Arctic ice. Sophie is at Ipswich General Clinic. Get here immediately. If you are not here within the hour, I am filing a police report for felony child endangerment. 30 minutes later, Arthur, Margaret, and Clara shuffled into the sterile waiting room. Sophie, sedated and sleeping, was in an observation bay. The confrontation that followed was brief and brutal. "Explain yourselves." Eleanor's voice was a low snarl. She was alone for over 4 hours. "How could you look me in the eye and lie?" Arthur, arms crossed, blustered. It was an oversight. A regrettable lapse. Margaret fluttered her hands. "We were simply exhausted. We genuinely thought she was with one of the others." Clara, inspecting a chipped fingernail, added, "You're always so overprotective, Eleanor. We figured she'd be fine for a little while." Eleanor was rendered speechless by their unrepentant, casual cruelty. Not a single word of apology. No flicker of remorse. This wasn't a lapse. This was deliberate. What if she'd been taken? What if she'd wandered into the ocean? Silence. Margaret's serene smile returned. Arthur picked up a discarded magazine. Clara pulled out her phone. Eleanor calmly asked the clinic security to escort them out. "Stay away from my daughter. Stay away from me. After what you've done, you still see no fault." That week, Eleanor took emergency leave from work to care for Sophie. Nightmares plagued the little girl. She became terrified of being alone, even for a moment. They began sessions with a highly recommended child psychologist specializing in trauma. Eleanor's closest friend, Olivia, a pragmatic lawyer, listened to the whole horrifying story over countless cups of tea. "Eleanor," Olivia said, her voice firm, "this wasn't just an accident. This was malicious. There's a pattern here, isn't there?" "I was always the family scapegoat," Eleanor wept. "But Sophie? My innocent Sophie. Tell me everything." "From the beginning," Olivia urged. And so Eleanor unearthed years of suppressed memories, the pervasive neglect, the relentless criticism, Clara's favored status, her own achievements consistently minimized, the cold indifference at her wedding, the "you made your bed" pronouncements during her divorce, their utter disinterest in Sophie. "They don't love you, Eleanor," Olivia stated flatly. "They resent you. They're consumed by jealousy that you escaped and thrived." The truth, stark and ugly, settled upon Eleanor. A few days later, a saccharine, pseudo-apologetic email arrived from Clara, which included the line, "But darling, you have to admit, you do sometimes overreact." That was the final catalyst. Eleanor made her decision. "I will not allow them to poison Sophie's life, or mine, a moment longer." She consulted with a formidable family law attorney, Ms. Albright. "This is a clear case of child abandonment and intentional infliction of emotional distress," Ms. Albright confirmed. "We can pursue both civil and criminal charges." "But, Eleanor, are you prepared for a complete and irrevocable severing of ties?" Eleanor took one night. One night to mourn the family she wished she'd had and to embrace the future she would build. Sophie's psychologist advised, "A child's recovery necessitates an environment of absolute safety and stability. Continued contact with her grandparents and aunt under these circumstances is contraindicated." Eleanor began to meticulously document. Old journals, letters, even saved voicemails painted a damning picture of long-standing emotional abuse. She changed the locks on her apartment, upgraded her security system, and cut off all direct communication. "They have dictated the narrative of my life for too long," she told Ms. Albright. "That power ends now." 2 weeks passed in silence from her family. Then, word trickled back through a bewildered distant cousin. Arthur and Margaret were telling people in their small community that Eleanor was hysterical and cutting them off over a misunderstanding. Clara was posting veiled, snarky comments on social media about smother mothers and children needing to learn independence. Eleanor, with Olivia by her side for moral support, drove to Albany for one final attempt at something. Closure? Understanding? Her parents and Clara initially doubled down, criticizing her exaggerated response. When Eleanor calmly, icily, asked for the real reason they'd abandoned Sophie, a heavy silence descended. Finally, Arthur, his face mottled with resentment, spoke. "You always had to be better, didn't you? So successful. So independent. Never needing us. Always showing us up. And that child of yours, shaping up to be just the same. We just thought a little lesson in humility wouldn't go amiss. Margaret added, her voice thin and reedy, you live so well, even after the divorce, without a shred of our help. It's galling. Clara, tears of self-pity welling, confessed, you were always the golden one, Eleanor. Always got the attention. I just wanted. Eleanor felt a strange, cold relief. The truth, however monstrous, was finally out. So, because of your bitterness, your jealousy towards me, you knowingly endangered my 6-year-old daughter? Their silence was her answer. Eleanor stood. I came here today to offer one last chance for you to act like human beings. Clearly, that was a mistake. She walked out, Olivia following. In the car, Olivia said quietly, they will never change, Elle. For your sanity and Sophie's, you have to be done. Eleanor gripped the steering wheel, her knuckles white. I will do whatever it takes to protect her. That day, she truly, irrevocably, left her family of origin behind. Back in Boston, Eleanor, with Ms. Albright's counsel, enacted her plan. Sophie, though slowly improving, still woke from nightmares. Eleanor listed 10 distinct actions in her journal, 10 measures of severance and self-preservation. Formal no-contact order, Ms. Albright drafted and served a legal notice of no contact to Arthur, Margaret, and Clara. Copies were filed with Sophie's school and her after-school program. Security reinforcement, all locks were changed again, and a state-of-the-art security system with cameras was installed. Cessation of financial support. Eleanor had been quietly contributing to a small fund for her parents' eventual elder care. She formally withdrew her contributions and informed them, via Ms. Albright, with a coolly worded letter, regarding future care provisions, please make your own arrangements, as I seem to have forgotten my prior commitments. Social severance. Sophie's 7th birthday invitations went out to friends and David's family. Her own family was conspicuously and permanently removed from all mailing lists, including Christmas cards. Public awareness, controlled narrative. Eleanor, with Olivia's guidance, wrote a carefully worded, anonymous blog post about the paramount importance of child safety, detailing, without names, how trusted family members can pose a risk and the necessity of decisive action. It gained unexpected traction among parenting groups. Reclamation of assets. She legally dissolved her interest in a modest family trust her grandfather had established for educational purposes, transferring her and Sophie's rightful share into a new, secure education fund for Sophie. Financial accountability. Itemized bills for Sophie's therapy, emergency medical care, and ongoing psychological support were sent to her parents via certified mail. They continued to be sent monthly, with a running tally of the outstanding balance. Official report to Child Protective Services, CPS, a formal report of child abandonment and neglect was filed with the New York State CPS. An investigation was opened. This action had significant repercussions in their small, church-going community. Exclusion from inheritance. Through Ms. Albright, she formally requested that both she and Sophie be explicitly excluded from Arthur and Margaret's wills, adding a pointed note, as we are clearly not considered family. We have no desire to benefit from your estate. Symbolic, forgetting their upcoming 45th wedding anniversary was deliberately ignored. Weeks later, Eleanor sent a blank card with a curt, typed message, my apologies for the oversight. I forgot. Finally, through Ms. Albright, she demanded the return of her maternal grandmother's jewelry and specific childhood mementos. She requested digital copies of any photos of herself and Sophie from family albums, after which she asked for the physical photographs to be destroyed or returned. Arthur's enraged phone call was met with Eleanor's calm, these are the direct consequences of your actions. This is the price for endangering Sophie. Margaret's tearful plea through a mutual acquaintance, family should forgive and forget, went unanswered. Clara's attempts to paint herself as the victim on social media were largely undermined by the now circulating awareness of Eleanor's anonymous post. The CPS investigation cast a long shadow over Arthur and Margaret's standing in their community. At Sterling and Moss, Mr. Henderson and her colleagues were unexpectedly supportive. Family or not, anyone who puts a child at risk forfeits the right to be in their life, Henderson had stated gruffly, approving her request for flexible hours. Eleanor began her own therapy, confronting the deep-seated trauma of her upbringing. David, Sophie's father, horrified by the events, offered unwavering support for Sophie's recovery. "Whatever Sophie needs, Elle. I'm here. And I fully support your decisions regarding your family." Olivia and other close friends rallied, forming a strong, chosen family for Eleanor and Sophie. Sophie, with intensive therapy and her mother's steadfast love, began to heal. The nightmares lessened. One afternoon, she announced, "Mama, Lily invited me to her birthday. It's a pool party at her Nana's, by the ocean. Can I go?" Eleanor's heart swelled. "Of course, my brave girl. And this time, Mama will be right there with you." A year later, the CPS investigation concluded with an official censure and a mandated parenting course for Arthur, Margaret, and Clara, which they reportedly resented. Eleanor's blog post had been shared widely. Rumor had it that Arthur and Margaret's 45th anniversary party was a sparsely attended, somber affair. Clara, her reputation tarnished, was overlooked for a promotion at the county library system. Eleanor, meanwhile, successfully spearheaded the Hawthorne Hotel project to completion and was made a junior partner at Sterling and Moss. Sophie's 8th birthday was a joyous celebration, filled with laughter, friends, and her loving chosen family. As a final, quiet act, Eleanor sent a simple and signed postcard to Arthur and Margaret. It was a picture of Crane Beach at sunset. On the back, she wrote, "Sophie and I had a wonderful day at the beach last week. The very same spot. She's not afraid anymore. We've moved on." Sending it, Eleanor felt a profound sense of release. Picnicking with Sophie in the Boston Public Garden, Eleanor said, "We're a strong little family, you and I. A real family is about who loves you and keeps you safe." Sophie, munching on an apple, looked up, her blue eyes clear and bright. "I'm happy, Mama." Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes. Their new life, built on courage and love, had truly begun. 5 years later, Eleanor Vance, now a full partner at Sterling and Moss, gazed out her expansive office window. The Boston skyline, burnished by the setting sun, was a testament to resilience and reinvention. Her personal life had also found a new equilibrium. Ethan Cole, a kind-hearted pediatric surgeon she'd met at a hospital charity gala, was now her husband. He adored Sophie, and together they were raising their 2-year-old son, Daniel, creating a blended family built on mutual respect and affection. Sophie, now a confident, articulate 11-year-old, was a star swimmer and a budding marine biologist. Her early trauma transformed into a fierce passion for protecting the vulnerable. Meanwhile, Arthur Davies' health had sharply declined. A debilitating stroke had left him requiring constant care. Margaret, isolated and worn down by the burden, struggled alone. Friends had largely drifted away after the CPS scandal. Clara, resentful and unwilling to sacrifice her own life, offered minimal assistance, having been forced into full financial independence when her parents' support dried up. Their family dynamic had completely fractured, consumed by bitterness and recrimination. Mounting medical bills had eroded their savings, forcing a move into a stark, state-funded nursing facility. Visitors were few. One evening, an unfamiliar number flashed on Eleanor's phone. "Hello, Eleanor Vance speaking." "Eleanor," it was Margaret, her voice thin and aged. "Your father, he's not doing well. The doctors say it's imminent. He's asking for you." A wave of complex emotions washed over Eleanor. 5 years of silence. I'll consider it, she said quietly and ended the call. That night, she discussed it with Ethan. I don't know what to do, Ethan. After what they did to Sophie, the next day, Eleanor spoke with Sophie. Pops is very sick, sweetie. He might not be here much longer. I'm thinking of going to see him, just once. What are your thoughts? Sophie, wise beyond her years, considered this gravely. I don't ever want to see them again, Mama. But I think it's okay for you to say goodbye if you need to. Eleanor visited the nursing home. Arthur, frail and diminished, managed a week, so you didn't forget. Eleanor met his gaze, her voice steady. No, Father. I didn't forget. Just as you didn't forget to leave my child on a beach. I will never forget what you all did to Sophie. Margaret wept. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive us, Eleanor? Forgiveness and forgetting are two very different things, Mother. I can forgive the fallible human beings you are, but you will never be a part of our lives again. That door is closed. Clara accosted her in the hallway. So, you showed up after all. Coming to gloat. This is the absolute end of our association, Clara. After Father passes, do not contact me, ever again, for any reason. You're no better. Clara spat. Abandoning family in their time of need. Eleanor paused. I don't abandon family. That's why I cherish Sophie and Ethan and Daniel. You, Mother and Father abandoned a terrified 6-year-old child for your own twisted reasons when you weren't in any trouble at all. That, Clara, is the difference. She walked away without a backward glance. Arthur Davies passed away a week later. Eleanor did not attend the funeral. Instead, she and Sophie released a single white rose into the waves at Crane Beach. Pops made bad choices, Mama, Sophie said, but he lived his life the way he chose, I guess. He did, sweet pea. And we've chosen to live ours differently. Contact from Margaret and Clara ceased entirely. To the funeral home, Eleanor sent a small, anonymous floral arrangement with a card that simply read, I forgot. For her wedding to Ethan, Margaret and Clara were not invited. Sophie was her maid of honor. Sophie, as she grew, developed an unshakable conviction that family was defined by love and action, not by blood. Her high school valedictorian speech, The Architecture of True Family, moved many to tears. Eleanor, encouraged by Ethan, eventually wrote a memoir, Shattered Trust, Rebuilt Lives, a journey from familial betrayal. It became a bestseller, offering solace and strength to countless others. She became a vocal advocate for the National Center for Healthy Family Dynamics. What I've learned, Eleanor would say in interviews, her voice calm and strong, is that true family are the people who nurture you, protect you, and would never intentionally cause you harm. Love is an action. It's about showing up, always. That's the family Sophie and I have built, and the legacy I hope to leave. On a bright summer afternoon, Eleanor, Ethan, Sophie, and young Daniel visited Crane Beach. Sophie, now a graceful young woman, dove fearlessly into the waves where she once cowered in terror. Look, Mom, she called, her face radiant. I'm flying. Eleanor smiled, tears of quiet joy tracing paths down her cheeks. The road had been long and arduous, but they had not just survived, they had thrived. That terrible day had forged in them an unbreakable strength and, most importantly, had taught them the profound, unshakable meaning of true family.